What is going on, guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to have some fun with the super cheap turbo Civic. So if you guys seen a couple of videos back, we finally got this thing on E85 and it is absolutely ripping. But for some time now, I've been wanting to try to set up some form of rolling anti-lag or a two-step so that we can hit the button, be at a predetermined RPM or speed, already be floored, and then release the button and the car spooled up and ready to go. We're going to do that utilizing our Hondata S300 ECU. So let's get through the intro and jump right into today's video. Now that we've gotten through the intro, the first thing that we need to do is fire up the Turbo Civic, go take it for a ride, and see where we land RPM versus speed so that we have a good baseline to set up our new two-step. Now, I'm not sure where this would fall by definition, either a rolling anti-lag or a two-step, but we're definitely going to be using it as a rolling anti-lag. Now, while we're out at the car, I'm also going to take a look through the list of inputs and see if there's any that aren't being used that we can use to trigger our new two-step. So let's get this thing fired up, go take it for a ride, and see where we stand. Now that we're out here at the car, before we fire it up, I'm going to take a look in our S Manager and see if we can find any inputs that are wired up and working that we're not currently using. So I know brake switch is one of the options under the two-step tab. So I'm going to open up the sensor tab here. We're going to look for brake switch. So we've got BKSW. That's the one that we're going to be looking at. We can see it's currently off. I'm going to lightly tap the brake pedal, and it does come on, as you guys can see. Off the brake, on the brake, off, on. All right, so that does look like it's wired up into the computer and it is functioning how it should. So for right now, I'm gonna plan on using that one as long as it gives us the option when we go to set up our two-step. So now that we've got that figured out, let's go ahead, fire the car up. We'll take it for a ride, see what RPM we land at for what given speed, and then we can come back and set up our two-step anti-lag. All right, let's fire this thing up and take it for a ride. I'm gonna let it get a little bit of heat in it here for a few minutes, and then we'll go take this thing for a rip. All right, we've let this thing get some heat in it. We're at like 180, so let's go take it for a ride. Do a log of basically holding it at a couple different RPMs so that we can look at the log and see what the speed versus RPM is. We'll see where we sit. I think that should give us a little bit of information. We can see I held it at a couple different RPMs, and we should be able to look at it and see what RPM equals what speed and where we want to set it up for the two-step. I think we're going to do one more log like that just to make sure that we have some information that actually looks consistent so that when we go to set up the two-step, we know where we stand. I'm aiming for a third gear setup, ideally. We could do a second, but it already wants to spin in second, so if we set it up for second, I have a feeling it's just going to blow the tires off when we let go of the brake switch. let's go take a look at that log, see what RPMs we've got, and start setting up our two-step. I'll give you guys a fourth gear at 3,500 just real quick so we can see, just in case we compare it later. Just as a data point. All right, let's take a look at this data log and see where we want to set up our anti-lag. I have to say, this car and combination in general is so much happier on E85. Now that we have those clean injection 1500cc injectors to supply enough fuel, this thing is absolutely loving it. Because when we were on pump gas before, we'd go out, drive it, make a run. Sometimes it'd be a little bit rich, sometimes it'd be a little bit lean. Now that we've got it on E85 though, this thing can go out and make pulls and be extremely close. So as you can see over here in our VTEC table, whole bunch of zeros and ones, a couple twos and threes, but this thing is a much more consistent on E85 than it ever was on pump gas. Not to mention it runs 10 times better. So let's head over to the bench. We'll take a look at our data logs, and we will also go ahead and set up our anti-lag. Let's take a look at these logs real quick and just see where we landed RPM wise. So this first one here, we were in third gear. As you guys can see, right around here, we were at 54-ish miles per hour and 3,700 RPM. So let's go back a little bit more. So right about here, we're at 3,500 RPM and about 51 miles per hour. So a little bit faster than I would have thought in third gear. Second gear, that might be perfect, but like I said, I think we're just gonna blow the tires off in second gear. So we'll have to set our system up here accordingly. But that's good information to have right there. 3,500 RPM, roughly 50 miles per hour. How much boost were we making? So we made just about 25 pounds of boost on the dot, 24.9 PSI at 6,600 RPM. So good information to have right there. But like I said, we were more concerned with our RPM versus speed. So we know basically 3,500 RPM is about 50 miles per hour. So if we do 3,500 RPM in fourth gear, we're gonna be doing right around 65 to 67 miles per hour. And then if we do 3,500 RPM in third gear, we're gonna be doing right around 50 miles per hour. Now that we've got that figured out, let's go ahead, set up our anti-lag. We're gonna go with 3,500 RPM and we'll go give this thing a try. Now that we've taken the Turbo Civic for a ride and we know roughly where we land RPM versus speed, and we know that we have a usable input that we can use to trigger our two-step, we can start setting it up in the tune. Now this first revision here, we're just gonna make a shot in the dark, educated guess and try to get it to work, verify everything's doing what it should, and then we can come back and fine tune it as much as we want. So let's open up the laptop and start setting up our new two-step. We can go ahead, go to parameters. We're gonna go to launch control. So now that we know that we can use that brake switch, we're gonna go ahead and select that as our activation. And then if you were using the brake switch to run something that you wanted on all the time and then only off when you hit the brakes, you could hit invert input here, and that's exactly what that would do. Now, as far as maximum speed goes, for us, we're gonna set it at 50 miles per hour for now so that we don't accidentally engage this at a way higher speed, but we can set that wherever we want later once we get this thing dialed in. Now, if we come down under launch settings, so right now we have it set at 5,200. We're gonna change that. I'm gonna drop that all the way down to 3,500 for now. We're gonna start out very conservative with this, and we can always come back through and add to this once we get it working. So since our launch RPM is at 3,500, I'm gonna start at 3,200 and then see if it builds boost. If it doesn't, we can always up that a little bit. Then down here under fuel enrichment, once again, we're gonna be very conservative. I'm gonna back that down to 100. And then for the ignition timing, we're currently at -10, which is great for shooting flames and building boost. The more negative timing you have here, in theory, it should build more boost and faster. So you guys can get as aggressive as you want or as conservative as you want. We're gonna start out extremely conservative. So taking one more quick look at our launch control before we go out and try it, we've got our brake switch enabled. Our maximum speed, we're gonna bump up to 100 so that we can try it in any gear we want. Then for launch RPM, we've got 3,500, activation RPM 3,200, fuel enrichment 100, and then ignition timing 0. Like I said, we are being extremely conservative here, just trying to keep our head gasket and our pistons alive. So you guys can get much more aggressive here if you so choose, but for us, we're gonna start out here, see if it does what we want, and if it doesn't, we can always bump it up then. So let's head out to the car, flash it, and try it. In theory, I should be able to hit the brake pedal right here, give it some gas, and it should pop off the two-step. So let's go ahead and try it real quick. It's doing its thing. See if it makes any boost sitting here on the two-step. It's a low RPM, and I have that window kind of spread, so it's not going to be like bouncing off it real hard. We're going for something that's smooth, builds boost, holds our speed, and lets us launch it good. So let's go ahead and see if it builds any boost just sitting here with no load. Looks like it built about a pound, a little under a pound. Let's see if I tighten that up a little bit, if it bounces a little bit harder. So that was 3,200 and 3,500. Let's go 3,300 and 3,500. Closer for sure. Let's try 3,400. All right, let's go try it and see what it does. I almost can't help myself but try it in second gear. Might just do exactly what we want. I might have to bump it up a little more than I'd like, but we're gonna have to just try it and see what happens here. I think we're gonna have to bump the RPM up. It's not quite enough. I was hoping to keep it where it was because I like that speed for a start speed. So let's do 3,700. Activate at 3,500. And then fuel enrichment, we're gonna do 110. And we're gonna take 2 degrees out. Let's try that and see what it does. Sounds a little bit more like a normal two-step. A little better. Not great, but definitely a little better. Yeah, we're gonna have to bump the RPM up and probably go down a gear. Second gear it works. I just don't know if this thing's gonna have enough oomph to do it in third gear unless I bump the RPM way up. But that second gear one, that one hit. Let's take another look at these logs. All right, let's take a look at this last log. So as you guys can see, we got on the two-step right about here. We let it pop for just a second or two here. It's right at the RPM that we were targeting, so everything's working perfect as it should, and it's activating as soon as we hit that brake pedal. So all of that is working exactly how it should. We're just at a point where we need to get it dialed in for what we're trying to do here. We still only were able to make about 3 to 3.5 pounds of boost, which is definitely better than it was before and just brake boosting it. We were actually able to get some boost out of it, and what I like is when you let go of the brake, you're already floored, so it's just right there. So that part is definitely gotten much better, and being at that 3.5 pounds of boost, once you let go of the button, it starts making boost much faster than it normally would. So that worked just how we wanted it to. I just think we're gonna have to spice it up a little bit. You gotta remember, we're dealing with a 1.6 liter with a turbo that's probably a little bit on the large side for it. The second gear one worked much better, obviously, because it has more of a mechanical advantage due to the gearing. As you guys seen, we had it at 3,700 RPM. We're gonna bump that up to 4,000. Then for activation RPM, so we'll go 3,850 on that one. And then for fuel enrichment, I'm only gonna add another 5. For timing, we'll go ahead and take away 1 more degree. So let's head back out to the car, we'll flash it again, and go see if this is any better. Fire this thing up, flash our file, and go try it again. Was a little congested there, but definitely a little bit better than it was, but definitely a lot better for third. For second gear, that shit is perfect. Thing is ripping in second gear. That's gonna have to be how we do it. It just needs more traction. That was absolutely ripping. Absolutely ripping. Let's take another look at the logs. Alright guys, so taking another look at this log real quick, I want to take a look at AFR this time and just see what that does, see if we need to add more fuel. Because in second gear, this thing came right to life. In third gear, it's still a little bit lazy, but like I said, we have that big mechanical advantage from being in second gear. It's going to make it spool better, take off better, all that good stuff. But if we look where it's on the popper here, we can see that AFR is roughly in the 12 to 13s, and then in a couple areas it does get lean, but when it's actually like misfiring or popping, that could just be extra air getting through there. So not sure that it's super lean, but in third gear here, it looks really good down in here, and then it starts to get lean right before we actually let go and went. So we might go ahead and add a little bit more fuel to it there. I went floored right about here, and it made almost 4 pounds of boost. And then at 4,300, it starts climbing really good, and that's when our quick spool disengages, and then it climbs up to about 25 pounds. So third gear is not looking too bad. Still a little bit lazy off the leave, so we might try to spice that up a little bit more. We're gonna go ahead and bump up our fuel enrichment. Let's try 125, and let's go -4. I'm also gonna bump this up another 50 RPM because it seems like I like it better when the chips set real close to each other, so it's just kind of staying right there. Maybe let's try 4,100 and 4,000. Let's try that and see what it does. So let's go flash it to the car, take it for another ride. We let this thing get some heat in it, and I just flashed a new file, so let's go ahead and try it out and see what it does. I decided to take away 1 more degree of timing. Let's go ahead and try it again. Definitely looked a lot better, so maybe we'll give it another degree or so of timing and see what it does. But definitely tightening up the RPM window helped a lot. I'm gonna take a quick look at that log and we'll go from there. I'm not sure how well you guys can see it from there, but I'll just give you a quick breakdown on how that run went. AFR is still a little bit leaner than I'd like once it gets onto the 2-step. It was good coming in, then kind of leans a little bit, and as you can see, right before we let go of the button, we were at almost 5.5 pounds of boost. So our changes definitely made a difference, and it definitely felt better. So I think what I'm going to do is add a little bit more fuel, and we're also going to take away 1 more degree of timing. We'll keep the RPM the same and go try it again. So I'm going to go from fuel enrichment of 125 to 135, and then since I changed it to -4 degrees of timing right before we tested it, we're gonna go ahead and change that to -5. So we'll go ahead and save this and go try it again. The track's a little busy. Let's get some E85 real quick. We'll take a look at this log and we'll go try again. Made a little over 5 pounds of boost, so not a huge improvement from the one before. So the AFR got a little fat on that one. Everything else looks really good though. As soon as we let go of the button, started building boost really nice. I'm gonna say let's pull a touch of fuel back out of it and then we'll try it again. Other than that, I don't really want to make many changes because it seemed to work really well. We're gonna leave all that the same, and I'm just gonna bump this down to 130. Let's fire it up and see what we get. If you guys can tell a difference on camera at all, but by feel it felt so much happier because when I let go of the button it didn't really bog or anything. It was just right there and went. So we just did another log and I came back and looked at this, and this is where I preface, I am by no means a tuner. I learn something new every day. So when I was originally setting this up and we did the negative timing under parameters here, you can see I have -5. For whatever reason, I thought that that was actually what it was commanding. That's why I was being so conservative with it. I thought this was actually commanding -5 degrees, but I just happened to go and look at the log and I decided to add ignition timing in here, which honestly I should have had in these logs from the beginning. And if we take a look at it, when it goes on the 2-step, we're at around 30 to 32 degrees. And when it starts pulling, it's going down to like 26. I think the lowest we've seen here is 23 at some points. So we're not pulling nearly the timing that I thought we were pulling originally, which leads me to exactly why we've only been making about that 4 to 5 PSI on the brake. So what we're gonna do next here, I think, is gonna make a massive difference. We're gonna go back into our two-step setup, our rolling anti-lag. And instead of making this number -5, we're gonna do something like -15, maybe even -20. So I'm gonna see what it's making for timing at that point. And then I'm gonna go in here and try to get actual timing down around maybe 8 to 10 degrees of timing. We can go even less than that. I might even go all the way down to like 5 degrees or 3 degrees. But like I said, I learn something new every day. I thought we were getting -5 degrees, and that's why I was kind of confused why it wasn't popping and banging and doing all that fun stuff. But it's because we were only actually pulling 5 degrees. So that's why it's not making a whole bunch of boost and why it doesn't sound like a crazy two-step. So let's go in here and make those changes real quick, and we'll go try it again. We're gonna change that from -5 to -13. Now that we know we need to pull a whole bunch more timing, let's fire this thing back up and give it another try. Let's go ahead and try it out real quick. I think I'm even going to pull a little bit more than that 13. Let's go 15. I don't know, let's go try it, see what it does. I'm still gonna have to go a little bit more aggressive. Let me go ahead and pull a little bit more out and we'll try it again. All right, let's take a look at it this time and see what happened. Made almost 6 pounds. So we were at -15. Let's go ahead and make that -20. That should put us at about 7 degrees overall timing. I don't know if I should just go ahead and pull like a straight up 29, which would put us into negatives. I mean, it's definitely working as it was. Even before we started pulling a bunch of timing, just having a button to maintain our speed and let us launch made it much more fun, or much easier to hold the speed and launch from. But to make it pop and bang and build boost and stuff, we're gonna try pulling some more timing here. So we're gonna go ahead and try -20 degrees and see what it does. And then I also made a file to try -25, so that hopefully we could just change it quick and easy. Phenomenal in second gear. Got us going really good. That was absolutely perfect for second gear. Like, don't need to change a thing. Lit them right up, but it also was pulling as we let go. So that was absolutely dialed in for second gear. Now we'll just have to see if it still works for third. But as far as second gear goes, that was absolutely perfect. Let's go ahead and try it in third if we can. to see if I can go ahead and just add 2 degrees to that, because that was dang near perfect. So let's try 22. Absolutely dialed, guys. This thing is ripping. That was dialed in. I'm glad that we finally figured out that whole ignition thing. I was wondering why it was being so lazy, but when we took that much timing out of it, this thing is absolutely flying. It gets right out there. So really happy with where this thing is landed right now. Let's go back to the house. I've got a couple logs we can look at real quick, see what it did as far as that goes, and see if we need to make any more changes. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at this log. All right, guys, so as you've seen, we've got this thing absolutely flying. So it took me a little while to figure out that the timing input that we were putting in under the 2-step category there was actually how much we're taking away. For some reason, I thought that that was just like a dead set number that it was gonna shoot for once we engaged our 2-step. So it makes a whole lot more sense how it's actually set up, where it's a number that takes away from our base table. That's something I should have known. And also in the data log, I should have been logging ignition timing from the start. So that was 100% on me. Took us a few runs there to get it figured out, but once we did, we definitely started making progress, and this thing is way quicker leaving off the brake with the 2-step active than if I just foot brake it. So much happier with how this thing's turning out. We definitely have a whole lot more room for improvement. Ran out of time, and it started to rain here, so we just ran out of conditions to be able to run this thing some more. So we'll definitely have another video coming up here soon with the anti-lag, where we'll actually start getting this thing down into the negative numbers, start popping and banging a little bit harder, and hopefully build a little bit more boost so we can launch it. Today, I just wanted to test and see if our foot brake would actually trigger it in the ECU, if it was all wired up and working properly, and if we'd be able to use it. And the answer is yes, it definitely worked out for us, and it's gonna be a whole lot more fun being able to leave like that, mainly because I can set what mile per hour that we wanna leave at based off of where I set our RPM for our 2-step. So really happy with how this whole thing turned out. Hopefully it can help you guys out in some way, shape, or form. As always, I appreciate you for checking out the channel. Don't forget to check us out on all of our other social media platforms, Facebook, TikTok, and Bought to Build Official on Instagram. Also, just in case you haven't seen, we did decide to start up YouTube memberships. If that's something that interests you, head over to the page and check it out. Any tier you choose will get your name up here on the wall in the shop. As always, I appreciate you for sticking around to the end, and we will catch you on the next one.